Hello YouTube, I'm getting really excited. We are 19 days away from the visual NDA on Ashes of Creation getting taken away, so we will be able to stream it. I plan on streaming it as much as possible that first weekend, the 9th, 10th, 11th. I will be working from 3:30 p.m. to 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, so I won't be able to stream in that time, but as soon as I get home from work, I'm going to be streaming, so that'll be overnight, and then as much as I can on the Saturday and Sunday, I'll be streaming. But let's jump into this video. This is part 2 of a 3-part series where we are looking at how Ashes can go from being a good game, which I think it will easily be a good game, to a great game, and what they are doing to make their game stand out and be a great game. And so last time we talked about how Ashes can build community with the different systems they have, with the node system, with their guild system, with the different economic systems and stuff like that. And so today's video, we are going to be talking about how the game will offer challenge. I believe as gamers, we look for challenge. That's why you see games like Dark Souls being so popular. You see Kaizo Mario hacks or Kaizo Mario levels in Mario Maker being really popular because they are a hard form of that game. And so I believe that offering a challenging game is very important. And I think that the developer team over at Intrepid Studio understands this, as they do not like participation trophies, as far as I have picked up from what they've been saying. And so I think we are going to get a very challenging game. And so there are a lot of different ways to have challenging games. You know, you have your dungeons, your raids, world bosses, and PvP. Now the hard thing about this is we really won't know how challenging things are until we get further along in the testing, until we start seeing end game content, level 50 content. We can have a bit of an idea based off of the level 20 content that we can play right now, but until we really see level 50 content, we won't know for sure. But we can still dive in and see what they have talked about and what they want to implement to talk about challenge and how they are already starting to build that challenge. And so we're going to jump in without further ado. Let's start dungeons. There's not a lot we know about dungeons. I haven't gotten to the point of being able to do dungeons in any of the playtests or anything like that, just because my time schedule hasn't allowed it. But I have been able to look at what their ideas for dungeons and further on raids are, and from my understanding, most of the dungeons, not all of them, but they're going to be like open world dungeons where people are fighting over mobs. The bosses, I believe, are not open world. That's my understanding. I could be wrong on that. But what I really love about this idea is it reminds me of back when I used to play classic WoW or original WoW. You have to go into an area. So let's take what's the mines? Wow, it's escaping me. But the mines in Westfall, you go, instead of just going straight into the dungeon, you have to go through this big area where people are fighting over spawns. And because you can fight anyone in Ashes of Creation, this is going to make dungeons much more difficult to farm stuff with, because you're going to be sitting there in the outside of a boss area trying to farm loot. Another group could come and you could end up fighting. And so I think that in itself is going to breed challenge. That's going to breed people wanting to fight each other. And so other than that, I think dungeons are going to be, you know, your basic things until we start seeing the boss mechanics, which, I mean, we can go and look at some of the videos that Ashes of Creation has, the developer teams have put out to see their bosses and what they kind of look like. And I really like the way they're going about stuff. It looks good. It looks like it's not going to be too easy. It looks like they're giving different bosses different kinds of mechanics, which is good. And so I think dungeons is one where it's going to offer challenge, and I don't think it's going to be too easy or too hard, which dungeons usually aren't. I'm curious. I don't know if they're going to have some form of higher end dungeon, like mythic level dungeons and stuff like that, because of stuff they've said that they're going to be doing for the raids. I'm not sure if they're going to implement that in dungeons as well. So we'll just talk about this really quickly, this thing that they're going to be initiating in the raids. And what it is as you're raiding, you get to your first boss. And depending on how you do against that boss, the next boss will become easier or harder. And then the loot will also change. If it's harder, you'll get better loot. If it's easier. So I would call this a quasi participation trophy. Now, I don't think it's a bad idea. I think it's actually a really good idea because you're getting rewards for beating the boss. Flat out, you're getting rewards for beating the boss. But then the rest of the challenge in that raid gets set based off of how good you are. And so you're not getting the same loot as somebody who's going to do better than you, and you're not getting the same loot as somebody who's doing worse than you, but you're getting loot appropriate to your current gear and or current skill level. And I think that is a great idea. I think that as long as it works well, that is going to really help the challenge of the game, because you need it to be challenging enough where people can't just walk in and wipe everything, but you need the challenge to kind of, when it flows with how you're playing, that is great. When it's not too easy, not too hard, because, you know, I don't mind if I try against the boss 50 times and fail every time, and then I beat it on time 51 or 60 or 70. You know, I might have to take a break, and that's fine. But I love that aspect of challenge. No, not everybody does. But I love being challenged like that, because when you finally beat that boss, it is great. You feel so accomplished. And so I really like the fact that they're going to be changing difficulties as you go through. And so for me, it's like, okay, I always, and I have feeling other people are like this, I'm going to want to get to the point where I am always fighting the hardest bosses I can, because me and my group are doing good enough. Now, that means not only I need to be playing well enough, but I need to be in a group of people playing well enough. And so here's where the downside of this comes in, is you already have people getting kicked from groups in other games because their DPS isn't high enough or something like that. And so say you just miss passing, like, let's call it tier 1. So tier 1's the lowest, tier 2, tier 3. And so you're fighting the boss, and you miss tier 2 by like 1,000 DPS or something like that, let's just say. You're gonna look for the people who are at the bottom of the pile and kick them out, and that sucks. I understand it, but it does suck. But that is going to happen no matter what you do. Now, it's not going to happen as much as it does in games like World of Warcraft, because there is no raid finder, dungeon finder, so most likely you're not pugging dungeons. And so I think that's really good for those people who are still learning how to play, getting into guilds, because a guild, most likely, if it's a good guild, will help you become better. They won't just kick you. And I really like that. And most guilds, if you're in a guild, you've been there for a while, and you're trying your best, they understand. People generally understand. And so I really like this mechanic. I think it's a great idea. I'm just curious how many tier levels each boss is going to have. Is it going to have 3, 4, 5? I think to a point, the more the better. I think they should have more than 3, but we'll see as we get to that point where it's going to be. Other challenges, we know there are going to be world bosses. And one of my favorite things about world bosses is when PvP ensues. I remember when, and I'm just telling this story because this is one of my favorite stories from Star Wars The Old Republic. There is a world boss on Tatooine, and we had our entire guild set up. We're going to take this thing out really quick. It's going to be pretty easy, but we wanted to get everybody the kill. And so we get out there, and it is not hard for us at this point to kill that world boss. I'm pretty sure I could solo it at that point because it's a lower level area than my character level. But another guild happened to decide to do the same thing, and they were Republic and we were on the Empire side, and we literally fought over that world boss for a solid hour and a half, and that was so much fun. And so I definitely see the potential for this. even more so because now you've got guilds on both sides. And so this whole everything I'm talking about with like guilds fighting and stuff like that, that's going to be part of PvP challenge. But so you have that option of now you see another group going to take the world boss and you're like, oh hey, they're gonna try and take it, let's try and snipe it from them or something like that, or let's kill them while they're doing it. I think that's a really cool thing that is going to happen lots in Ashes of Creation. You're gonna get a lot of guild fighting over world bosses, over caravans, stuff like that. So that's really cool. World bosses, we've seen a video from Intrepid showing off a couple dragons, fire, poison, and ice, and so you can always go and check that video out. Again, I don't know, they won't have the tier system, I presume, like the other raids will, because it's a one and done boss. So I think they really need to make the world bosses hard. I don't think they should be easy. I think they should be harder than easier. That's my personal opinion. And again, we won't really know until we get to level 50, see how our characters actually manage with both archetypes rather than just one archetype. But I really want to see multiple world bosses, and because of the node system, every server is going to have different world bosses, and so they'll have different mechanics. You'll have ocean world bosses versus, you know, land world bosses. And there's not a whole lot I can say about the difficulty of that other than I think it should be hard. They should be challenging. They should be something that you can beat with 40 people. And I honestly kind of am on the fence about this idea, but I feel like if they implemented a way that when you start fighting the world boss, if it got announced to like surrounding areas or something like that, that would kind of be cool, because then it gives other people an opportunity to attack. And so it makes you really have to think, okay, are we prepared to take this world boss down if we get attacked by another guild? And so that probably won't happen, but I think it would be a cool idea. With this, I really think it would be good to make it so that they're really hard to take down. But we'll see what happens when it comes out. I'm also curious if they're going to have different levels of world bosses, because right now they have their level 20 world bosses. So will there be level 20 world bosses that require raids to take down? Or are they all just going to be max level? It'll be interesting to see how they do it. I know in Star Wars The Old Republic, each world itself you flew to had a world boss that was the max level. So except for I think the starter level, so like Coruscant had a level like 18 world boss, because you usually left there around level 18 and stuff like that. And so it'll be interesting to see how they do that. And then lastly, there's PvP. I think that the way they are balancing it, they aren't focusing on trying to balance each character against every other character, but rather they're trying to balance groups of 8s. I think this will make PvP really interesting. I think you're going to have classes that are like the rogue archetype with the rogue that are just meant for killing people, and they are going to dummy people. And if you're a PvP player, there are going to be options for you just to dummy people. But then you're going to have classes that are not meant for PvP necessarily, that just dump on those PvP specific classes. So I'm presuming if you have a rogue and then you have like a tank cleric or something like that, which would be a paladin fighting, I have a feeling the paladin's probably going to win that fight. We won't know until, you know, more archetypes come out. But I think the way they're going about PvP is a really good way to do it. You can flag, you can fight anyone you want, and then you don't have to flag. They can become red players, and then if you're a red player, there are going to be bounty hunters after you, and you have to work that off. And so I really like the PvP system. I think they're adding a lot of challenge to the game by making other people fight you with the caravans, with you going out and farming stuff, and then people want your loot. I really think that's going to add an extra layer of challenge that is going to have a really big pro and a really big con. And so the pro is that, again, it goes back to that community thing where you will eventually start needing to make friends. to farm with, because there are going to be people who are trying to kill. There are going to be people that are basically playing bandits, looking for lower level people, or not lower level, but individuals who are farming, and there'll be like 3 people killing 1 person. It's going to happen. And so there are going to be minor communities that pop up in different areas of like, hey, I'm gonna go out and farm, who wants to join me, so that, you know, we don't get murked by these quote unquote bandits out there. The negative to it is that it is probably going to really frustrate a lot of people. And so you need to go into this game understanding that the PvP is probably going to get frustrating at some point. And it's going to be really annoying, especially if you're a solo player. Until you find a guild to play with, you're probably going to have a really hard time, because people love to be trolls. And so you really got to be aware of this. And I think, again, pro and con, it's going to be really good for making communities forced to develop to deal with bandits. And then the bandits are going to want to be getting people who want to do banditry and kill people and steal their loot, specifically, because that's who some people want to play, and that's perfectly fine. And so I just really think that the PvP aspect of this game is going to bring challenge to every other aspect, and I think that's really good. I just really hope that the other aspects of the game aren't made too easy because of that, and I don't think they will be. I really think that Intrepid Studios wants to go after having a challenging game that allows people those moments of, oh man, we finally did it. We finally got there, and I'm really excited to see what those moments are, because those moments are going to be the moments you talk about in a year or 2 down the road when you finally beat that boss. I remember I was playing World of Warcraft, the Legions, I can't remember which expansion. Anyway, we were doing a mythic dungeon, and there was a boss, and he had an insta-kill move, and me and 2 of my buddies were playing. I was tank, and one of my other buddies was the DPS shaman. And we were like, hey guys, this boss has an insta-kill, dodge it. 3 people died. So me and my buddy, he's at half health, this boss, and me and my buddy are left. And I believe it was a mythic one, so we weren't on a time crunch. And me and my buddy, who was playing the DPS shaman, managed to survive and kill the boss from half health down. And this was fairly on it. And like to this day, because that was so hard to do with just the 2 of us, it just feels like such an awesome moment, you know. And I remember playing back when I used to play RPGs and stuff like that. I used to play Golden Sun: The Lost Age, and we didn't really look up strategies or anything at that point in time. And I remember me and the same buddy, actually, who will probably be joining me on the weekend of the 9th at some point in time, we were fighting the final secret boss, which was really hard to get to because you had to collect all of the Jinn in the game and stuff like that, and in the game before it, because the data transferred over, and it took us forever to beat this final secret boss. His name was Dullahan, and now we know there was really easy ways to do it, but I spent so many hours grinding in that game so that we could beat him. And I remember when we beat him, it was so exciting, and like we still talk about that boss to this day every once in a while. And so that's the goal in challenges, to really make it hard enough that people are talking about these bosses when they beat them. They're like, oh man, that was so amazing, you know. And so I'm really excited to see what happens with the challenge. I don't think this is as big of an area as the other 2, but if they fail and this becomes way too easy, then it will ruin a game. I think if a game is way too easy, it will ruin it. I think if it goes the other way and it's way too hard, I don't think it will ruin it. It will definitely chase more people away than if it hits that right difficulty level. But I would rather it be too hard than too easy. And I think a lot of people are like that. And I think Intrepid understands that. And so I think that's what they're aiming for. Anyway, that's going to be it for the video. If you want to come over, watch me on Twitch. I won't be streaming until Ashes comes out right now, just because of my work schedule. But once it comes out, I'm streaming even if I have the same work schedule. So I'll put the links to my Twitch down below, to my Discord. And I hope you guys have a great day, and 19 more days. So excited. Can't wait to be able to show you guys what's going on, what the game looks like. Anyway, I hope you have a great day, great evening, whatever time it is for you, and peace out.